Hello, everyone. This is RJ Game News USA here, and I have a very special guest today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your movement?
Hi, my name is Lord Triton, one of the founders of March for America. And March for America is a political movement that me and my friends Dan and Gabe decided to create because we're tired of the government just lying to us, not listening to us. We're tired of the homeless problem because there's not enough homeless programs for Americans. There's not enough social welfare programs for homeless Americans that actually do want to work, and inflation's high, and a lot of the homeless people are suffering, not to mention all the foreign wars going on. And that's another thing that we're really against is the foreign wars, because we've been going to war with Venezuela, Iran, now Greenland, Iraq, Iran. Like, we're doing all these foreign wars for literally no reason. And a lot of people are tired of our tax dollars going into these wars that have nothing to do with us. And that's another reason why we decided to start this march. And another thing, too, which kind of relates to foreign wars, is prosecute all these politicians that are taking bribes from these entities to start these wars and do these foreign entities, biddings and stuff. And it's like, I don't think that we should have politicians in office that are getting paid by foreign entities like APAC, Qatar, and these other countries. Like, I feel like if you are elected into office, you should represent America first, put our country first. You shouldn't be paid by foreign entities to put a foreign entity's interest first over our own country.
And you would say this is a problem across the board, Democrats and Republicans.
Yes, Democrats and Republicans, because Republicans, they all have an APAC supervisor, and I heard some Democrats have it too. And not only that, but Democrats are compromised by either Qatar or Israel and other foreign lobbies, just like Republicans are. And I feel like that's not fair. I feel like if you are put to represent us, you need to represent the people. Represent the people of America. Represent the people that put you in, that voted you in. Not these foreign entities that can't even vote in our country.
It kind of feels like the system's just rigged against the average person, doesn't it?
Yes, that's exactly. It feels like the system is rigged against the average person, and that's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of everything just being rigged, and the billionaires and the politicians always winning, and the corporations always winning, but then you got the average citizens and the local businesses, all that's losing.
Do you feel like a lot of people were tricked and duped by Trump?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, including myself, because I voted for Trump, but at the same time, like, I understood why a lot of people voted for Trump, because Kamala's no better, like, at all. Like, I feel like under Kamala, the economy would be just as bad and would be involved in foreign wars anyways. So reality is, like, it doesn't matter if it's Trump or Kamala. I feel like we're fucked regardless.
Well, that
Because
and
both sides is not an America First candidate. There ain't a candidate that really gives a fuck about the American people.
Well, I think it's interesting because Trump would give the rhetoric and the narrative like he was America first, and then he gets into office and he governs completely different than how he ran.
Yeah, because he wanted to trick everybody. He wanted to trick the voters into voting for him, into thinking that he was the same guy in 2016 that stood up against the establishment. But then when we put him in, he just changed. He started working with the media, being more friendly to the media that slandered him. He started, sweeping for Israel, giving more tax money to Israel, and increasing home prices.
I'd hate to
Making
say it.
inflation worse. Like, inflation has not decreased under Trump. It feels like it's gotten worse since Biden left. And inflation was pretty bad under Biden. But it seems like when Trump came in, he didn't even fix any of the inflation problems, because there's a lot of people homeless on the streets. In fact, there's a news story I covered on the Ravencast the other night of homeless people being frozen to death under a bridge because they had nowhere to go, because no homeless shelter would take them, and no social welfare program would have taken them.
Yeah, are you familiar with BlackRock?
Yes, BlackRock is a shady company. It's one of these companies that just buy out all the housing and leave none for the average citizen. And I feel like that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's part of the problem why that's going on. But yeah, as far as Trump goes, I mean, I think at this point we have to look at it for what it is. It's a psyop. He was never for us. He's always been part of the establishment. It's all just been a trick, a bait and switch, or else he would have been killed if he's been in office.
Because that's the thing. They tried to assassinate him, but now that he's in office, it seems like they left him alone. Because I feel like he took a deal.
Yeah. So
getting to the march, we decided to start the march because of all these reasons of, homelessness, the foreign wars, and the politicians being corrupted and taking foreign bribes. So we decided to come up with a plan to march from Jacksonville to Washington, D.C. So me, Gabriel, and Dan all got together to Jacksonville, and we decided to reach out to the news station, and surprisingly, the news station interviewed us, and we basically, told them what we were for. And most importantly, too, I forgot earlier in the interview, but we're also for, making sure that people know that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior, because during this whole experience, like, no joke, Jesus has helped us through a lot of stuff. But there's a lot I'm going to get into that I feel like he's helped us out with, because, there's a lot of problems, a lot of risks that we ran into. But we were always able to get out because we prayed, and then we just got miracles on the way. So after the news interview, they basically asked us, like, what we're marching for. We told them what we're marching for. And after the news interview, we head straight to D.C. Our first stop outside of Jacksonville was Callahan. We arrived at Callahan, and Gabriel decided to call the sheriff's office, right? He called the sheriff's office and said, hey, we need to know where we can camp. They said this random abandoned place that was abandoned for years and no one lived there. And we said, okay, cool, we'll camp there. Turns out someone ended up living there at that abandoned house, and they called the cops on us, and the cops gave us a ride all the way to Folkestone. So then once we got out of Callahan, we went to Folkestone. Day two, the next day, we were already in Folkestone, day two. So we decided to call the sheriff's office there and see where we can camp, and they said they can camp right outside the sheriff's office, right?
Right.
So the next day we wake up, and Gabriel goes out of the tent, and this deputy comes out and points a gun at him and says, what the fuck you doing here? Why are you camping out here? And Gabriel's like, whoa, we got permission from the sheriff. Why are you pointing a gun at me? We got permission from the sheriff. And then the douchebag deputy was like, no, I don't care. You did not get permission from the sheriff. And he was like, I'm going to call the sheriff and see if you guys are lying. And then he called the sheriff, and the sheriff was like, yeah, you guys are allowed to camp there. They were allowed to camp there. They had to leave by sunrise. So we ended up leaving, going to the next town, Winneker, and this stupid douchebag deputy, because Winneker was in the same county as Folkestone, Georgia, the same deputy follows us to this church, because we went to this Baptist church to see if we can get some help, right?
Right.
It turns out apparently that stupid Baptist church called that douchebag deputy to come, and he was saying, you got to get the fuck out of here, and pointing a gun at Dan again. Like, he kept pointing, because Dan got lost, and Dan got driven off, and Dan was trying to get his stuff outside the trunk, right?
Right.
And the douchebag deputy points the gun at Dan and is like, oh, get away. He's like, get away from the trunk. It's like, why do deputies have that much power?
Well, let me ask you about that real quick. Is there any part of your movement that is going to incorporate the police state being a little too aggressive?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm actually adding, because the police state was little, especially in Charleston County, Georgia. They were really aggressive, mainly that one deputy. And that's why I'm also bringing this story up, because it's talking about the corruption of not just the government, not just politicians, but police officers as well, like local authority, county authority as well. It's not just the federal government. It's also all of it's corrupted. A lot of the government's corrupted.
I mean, at some point, authority used to be about you're serving people. Now it's become just nothing but power trips.
Yes, nothing but power trips, nothing but, oh, I'm better than you, or, hey, you guys just walking around, y'all seem a little sus. Let's point a gun at you instead of asking you what you're doing. Because that's the thing. We would have, if he would have just asked us, hey, what you guys doing? Why you have a tent out here? Did you get permission? We would have told him, yes, we're part of this movement. We're actually protesting to D.C. because that's what we explained to the sheriff that let us camp there. And he agreed with our movement and allowed us to camp. But I guess the deputy wasn't really too fond of it. And we talked to a lot of the locals in the town in Charlton County, in Folkestone, and they said that this deputy has had the same issue of just pointing guns at people and just power tripping. And it's been a problem in Charlton County for years.
I tell you, I'd keep an eye on that. One day that guy might be in the news if he shoots somebody.
Yeah, he'll definitely be on the news for shooting somebody because he just pulls out his gun way too quickly and likes to just flex it, likes to load it, and he's just like, bro, he's gonna be worse than Derek Chauvin if he keeps this up and pulls it on the wrong person. So after Winneker and after all that, we decided to march to this place called Nahana, and the sheriff's office was actually a lot nicer there. And we decided to, they helped us give a ride, and they gave us a ride to Jessup because apparently there were a few people complaining about us camping like on the side of the road. So,
Whoa, I gotta stop on that one for a second. Who sees people camping and is like, oh, I gotta complain about this? What kind of like problems do you have in your life where you're gonna mess with people that you, for all you know, could be homeless? You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's the thing. We dealt with that like twice. People just calling the cops on us, just camping a tent, just setting the tent there for the night. It's not like we were there all week. We literally just get there, set up tent for the night, and as soon as we set up this tent, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the calling cops are coming, saying, hey, at least in the Nahana police, they offered to give us a ride to the next city, which was Jessup, which is really good. So we got the ride to Jessup because some douchebag called the cops on us because apparently we're on someone's land, even though the sheriff's office of Nahana said we could camp there too. It's really weird because every time a sheriff or a deputy would drop us off somewhere, someone would call the cops and the cops would be back right out. And it's like, the deputy literally said we could camp here, yet you guys are just going to go back on your word? Come on.
But no, I mean, what do people want people that are homeless to do? Do they want them to just not exist, to be killed? Like, I mean, the homeless people have to stay somewhere, or traveling people have to be able to stay somewhere.
Yeah, that's the thing, because a lot of people say, oh, why didn't you use the car to D.C.? It's like, none of us afford. In fact, Gabriel was actually homeless, and that's the thing. Like, some of us that were marching were actually homeless and had nowhere to go and don't have the funds to buy a lot of this fancy stuff. So we decided to, go the 1800s route and march to D.C., which then we got to Jessup. We met this really good guy named, because that's the thing, we were walking to Jessup, and once we got dropped off by the Nahana sheriff to the gas station in Jessup, we were all, like, stressed out, tired, kind of, not like infighting too much, but we kind of got in a little argument because Gabriel just wanted to take the Greyhound from Jessup to straight to D.C. because he got tired of cops messing with us, of people calling the cops on us, people mistreating us.
Right.
That's the thing. The black community's actually been supportive. It's the white, old, boomer, MAGA people that have not been supportive at all.
That's crazy.
It's really, really weird that none of these people that claim to be free speech wanted to support. A lot of people called us, socialists because we're advocating for the homeless, but it's like, look at all the homeless Americans you see. So yeah, we were fighting, and then this guy Chris comes up to us, Chris Miller, Milltown Productions on TikTok. He comes up to us and he's like, hey, what do y'all? I recognize you because he thought that for some reason he thought we were a part of the Buddhist march, right? And
Oh.
we're not part of the Buddhist monks, but we are, marching for America. We were a different protest group, and he actually decided to give us a place to camp for like 4 days so we could figure out a plan, right?
Right.
So while we were camping there, Gabriel, because Gabriel has hurt his ankle in Nahada and was tired, so he was like, he was originally going to take the Greyhound, but Gabriel ended up staying in Jessup. So me and Dan decided to walk to Hinesville, like we'd go to Hinesville. But the night before we were leaving to go to Hinesville, me and Chris and Dan, we were in his house filming some paranormal content. And then me and Dan went back out to the tent, right? And Chris just scares the living shit out of Dan to the point where Dan falls onto the tent because Chris went outside the tent and pretended to be like a ghost to scare Dan. And Dan just kicks the tent and falls onto the floor and breaks his, not like breaks his arm, but like dismantles his arm to the point where he couldn't lift it. And so next day, took Dan to the hospital. They said the arm was fine. So we decided, you know what? We'll walk to Hinesville. So we decided to walk to Hinesville, and the walk was really more like kind of intense because it was like a 30-mile walk from Jessup.
Hold on a minute.
But we still did it. We ended up making to Hinesville, and then once we got to Hinesville, Dan's arm was still a little damaged, and I was running out of funds. So we decided at Hinesville, you know what? We're going to decide to take a Greyhound from Hinesville to D.C. to finish the trip because, you know, Dan's arm's broken, and I'm not trying to, you know, have Dan break his arm even more by carrying the tent and carrying all this
stuff.
We decided to go to the Greyhound station.
Can we back it up for a second, though?
Joel left us at Jessup and went on his own to D.C. So we met up with Joel in D.C., went to this place called Dual Housing, and then once we got to D.C., we marched all over, and we streamed a little bit. We also did our speech in the National Mall. Dan talked about the social welfare program thing.
But before we get to what you said at D.C., though, can we back it up just a little bit? Can you tell us about the paranormal thing that happened? Are you there?
After we left Jessup, we went to Hinesville. We stayed at a hotel for a few days. We decided to go to D.C. And once we got to D.C., we did our speech at the National Mall. We saw the Abraham Lincoln Memorial Monument. And we also went and met with a few congressional representatives. We met with Thomas Massey's staff. We talked about the social welfare program issue. We also talked about how bad the foreign wars have gotten. And apparently they got back to Thomas Massey, and Thomas Massey is very pleased to hear about what we had to say about our movement and all that, and about our policies. And he's decided, and he's followed me on Twitter, and I'm going to have another meeting in the summertime when we go back to D.C., and we're going to meet with Thomas Massey and get America First policies into the political government and actually get politicians to wake the fuck up. We also met with Buddy Carter's representatives. We told them a little bit about the movement, but we mainly met with Buddy Carter because Buddy Carter's the congressional representative for Georgia, for Charleston County, and we told them about the corrupted deputy. And they said they'll try to do something about it, so hopefully something gets done to that corrupted deputy. The Buddy Carter's representative said he would call me back, but I haven't gotten a call back from him yet. But hopefully, even if he doesn't call me back, at least Buddy Carter can clear us out and do something about that deputy, because that deputy should not be pulling out guns on random protesters or random people, period, just because he doesn't like the way they look. Like, you have to talk to them, and then if there's probable cause, and then you pull out the gun.
Yeah, that's kind of a hot button issue right now with like the ICE stuff that's going on and the protests and people getting shot. But the difference is those guys were kind of antagonizing the police. You were just doing nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we were just doing nothing. We were just going out into town, talking to locals, telling locals our movement. we didn't really chant. Like, we chanted a little bit, but we didn't, like, make a whole big scene about it. We were just there peacefully, letting people in each town know about a movement and basically just leaving, you know what I mean? And that's all we basically did, was just, you know, go in, let people know. Because that's the thing, no weapons were brought onto the march. I even made it clear to the 4 marchers that marched with me, hey, no weapons, because as soon as they find weapons on us, we're all going to jail. Because with the ICE stuff going on and all that going on, we just decided no weapons, we're going to be pacifists, and if they arrest us, it would have been against the Constitution because we were pacifists. But
No.
they didn't end up arresting us because they actually knew we were pacifists. And that's the thing, when we got to D.C., we were still pacifists. Like, yeah, we was, like, in the speech, I'm not going to lie, like, in my speech on the stream, I was a little aggressive. I did name call people like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, J.D. Vance, and all the people.
Oh, man, your speech was freaking fire. And so the other guy that was with you, who was his name?
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, his speech was fire too. Like, I watched your guys' stream, and I thought it was some really good stuff. Now, I also think that people shouldn't underestimate how dangerous this trip could have been. You were walking without weapons. You were going all across the country there in the South. I mean, anything could have happened. And so, thankfully, you and your partners were safe.
And I know, like, people will say, oh, why didn't you go all, like, cause I wanted to go all the way, but we had to take Greyhound halfway in Hinesville because of Dan's arm.
Right.
And also because of other things that happened. But we still marched a good 100-plus miles all the way to Hinesville. And that's the thing. Even going into D.C., because we were there right before the general strike on the Iran happening. So we had to be really careful on what we talked about. Like, we still, you know, was uncensored and all that. We had to be very careful around, like, what we said around certain people. You know what I meant? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But one cool thing we ended up doing as well while we're up there, we passed by Pam Bondi's office. We fortunately couldn't record it because you can't record her office, but we screamed outside of her window, hey, Pam Bondi, do a better job, bitch. Do your job.
Yeah, those Epstein files, that release of that was pretty wild.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, another thing too, like, because that's the thing, like, during the march, I wanted to add, like, a lot more stuff. Another thing that our march really stands for and really wants is to put in these antitrust laws, and if these, because that's the thing, you know how we have antitrust laws in the government?
Yeah.
But no one enacts them whatsoever every time a politician or someone like Pam Bondi or Kash Patel lies to us. We need to start prosecuting these people lying to us. We need to prosecute Pam Bondi and Kash Patel for one, not following Thomas Massey's legal DOJ release date, because Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna both wrote a bill that they had to release the Epstein files, and it was signed and legally signed, meaning Kash Patel and Pam Bondi legally had to release all the files uncensored. But every time the files keep getting released, they censor the most important parts.
They always do that when they release secret documents. It's ridiculous.
It's like, why the fuck are you guys censoring shit? Why are you guys censoring the most important things in the Epstein files?
And then you find out what's uncensored, and you're like, I see what they were trying to stop people from seeing.
But that's the thing, it's like, I feel like that if our government is truly ran by Epstein pedos and shit, they all need to lose their jobs. Every single one of them. It's not an excuse, they're official. They shouldn't have been there. If you are doing crimes against our nation, you should not be in power. And that's the main objective of March for America, is to fight against corruption. Fight against corrupted politicians that are doing stuff that are not in the interest of our people. That is hurting our people. Because there's a lot of these politicians hurting our people, hurting our civilians. And we're just tired of that. We are really tired of that. Me, Dan, Gabe, Joe, we're all tired of that shit. And that's why we did the march, is because there's so many corrupted politicians in office. You got people like Pam Bondi, Kash Patel that was supposed to release the Epstein files, but then when they do, they still redacted it. And you also have Kash Patel on oath, saying that Epstein trafficked no underage minors. And it's like, how can you say that on oath and not be called out and not be fired? Because if it was a Democrat politician, Trump would fire them and get them prosecuted.
Oh yeah.
It's because it's someone he picked. He ain't gonna do that.
Yeah, it's just out and out corruption. And then we had I noticed right as you were around DC that Venezuela thing happened, and that was crazy.
It literally happened on the mark.
Yeah, and I mean, I always try to tell people this. I'm like, imagine if another country did what we do to other countries to us.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We can all agree that Nick Maduro was a bad guy because there are a lot of Venezuelans that did not like him. But however, it does not give an excuse of what Trump did, because Trump did it the wrong way. Because he didn't even ask Congress for approval, and that's why Congress is trying to impeach him right now. It's because he didn't ask any of them for permission or approval to strike Venezuela. He just did it overnight, and I feel like you shouldn't do that as a president, because that's what the Congress is there. The Congress is the one that decides if we should go to war or not, if we should capture a leader of another country or not. Trump didn't even use the international laws. He broke international laws and our own country's laws. He didn't get permission from the United Nations, regardless of what people think about him. We were still in the United Nations and NATO at the time, and I think we're still in NATO.
And they want They want Greenland too.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. Greenland also was another topic that happened right as we were in D.C. And I feel like, why do we need Greenland? Like, it's just like, bro, we don't need all these. For one, we tried regime change in Libya, Iraq, Syria, all these other countries. Guess what? None of it worked out. The countries are still destabilized. There's still terrorists in all those countries. Regime change does not work, especially in the way Trump does it. He just goes in, takes the government over, takes over a bad leader, puts in a new bad leader, and then now we have to do it all over again.
Yep.
And it's like, come on, like, are we really going to be behind Trump's regime changes and all this? No, we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be behind him going after Greenland. Apparently, too, he ended up backing down from it after meeting with the Denmark leader and the Greenland leader in person. He ended up backing down on it and is no longer going to take over Greenland because Trump's down on it.
Well, I mean, that's good. That's why we need to put pressure on them. Us Americans, we need to put pressure on them and stuff. And so I think what you're doing, what your group is doing, it's just one example of many little groups that could start, making some noise and changing people's minds. So, I mean, I think you would agree that everybody that was like either making fun of you guys or anybody that was saying, oh, what's it going to do or whatever, I think all those people are pretty ignorant. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, because they ain't doing anything. They ain't going out there and talking to the congressional representatives or making big risk journeys because that's the thing, I'm not going to lie, I'm not rich. That took a lot of money out of my pocket, but I did it because I care about our country. I care about these issues, and it's not just me that cares about the issues. Dan, Gabe, Joe, all of them care about the issues too, and that's why we did this big, huge trip to D.C. That's why we decided to march all those miles up to Hinesville and go into D.C. It's because we care about our country. And that's the thing. In Hinesville, we could have just gave up and go back home because that was the idea. But I was like, you know what? Me and Dan were both like, you know what? We're not going back home. Even though, like, we may have to take a Greyhound, we'll still go to D.C. because at the end of the day, it's important that we got there, and I'm so glad that we got there, because the city's really beautiful, too. But the main mission of us getting there is to get our points across and get these politicians to actually hear us out. And it seems like Thomas Massey and his staff have heard us out, and I appreciate his staff member for hearing us out and actually talking to him about our movement. And hopefully we can get that meeting, because we're going back to D.C. again in the summertime. That is confirmed. Like, we're already planning it
Awesome.
out for June, July-ish. I'll give more updates on to it in the March for America social medias, but we plan on going back to D.C. and actually meeting with Thomas Massey physically in person as well. And we couldn't meet with Thomas Massey himself because when we got there, he already left and went to Kentucky for something. So we had to meet with a staff member instead. But that was still good enough, because now we can go back there and meet with Thomas Massey himself and talk about these issues, talk about how there's a lot of homeless Americans, on the streets right now and not getting any shelter. And there's also, and that's the thing too, we also did it for homeless veterans as well, because Gabriel, our friend, is a homeless veteran, which you saw in the news.
Right.
And that's why we did the march, because, he, after, he had his thing where he got out of the military, he couldn't get any housing because his mom kicked him out. And I feel like that's not fair. And that's the thing, I'll say this. It doesn't matter. It matters more if you're a veteran, but it doesn't matter if you're a veteran or if you're a civilian or whatever. If you live in this country and you want to work, but you can't get a job because of everything that's going on with inflation and all that, you deserve to be helped by the government. Because if you can't get a job because of the government's fault, then why should you pay the price when it's the government's fuck up?
And that's
so expensive and shit.
That's only going to get worse too with AI taking jobs.
There's a few people I know with jobs, because that's another thing too. Because the biggest argument we had against our movement was people saying, "Why don't y'all get a job?" There are literally homeless people with jobs. There's a few people I know in Florida that have jobs but have nowhere to go.
And rent prices are crazy.
Housing's so expensive.
Rent prices are crazy. You could work, and still have a struggle paying rent.
Yeah, that's another thing too. It's like people work and still struggling to pay rent, still struggling. Like the people I live with right now, they have good jobs and shit, and they're struggling to pay rent because Florida's so damn expensive. That's another reason too why March for America is going to campaign for a guy named James Fishback. If you know who that is because James Fishback is going to eliminate property taxes for all Florida residents. And I feel like a lot of states should do that, because for one, why is the government taxing your home?
Well, I was going to say your governor, Ron DeSantis, I think supports eliminating property taxes.
Yeah, he does. But James Fishback has been more aggressive about it, because, in fact, James Fishback is running as Ron DeSantis' successor.
Oh, okay. He's the guy that could replace him. Yeah, because I actually think you have a pretty good governor. I always thought DeSantis. I actually voted for him in the primary. I would have voted for him in the primary if it was on time. If he didn't already drop out, but I would have voted for him in the primary in 2024. I think he gets it. Yeah, I like him better than Trump.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Ron DeSantis seems like a guy that you can actually have a sit-down conversation with, and he ain't just gonna silence you like Trump has been doing. Because another thing too, it's like we've been just seeing, because the MAGA campaign, they're supposed to be for free speech, right? But then every time people call them out for the Epstein thing or shilling for Israel or just anything in general, you have MAGA trying to silence them and trying to, basically shut them up. And that's what they're doing to Thomas Massey, because we covered a story on the Ravencast of Thomas Massey going on an interview and claiming that Trump and his admin team are harassing Thomas Massey's donors and forcing Thomas Massey's donors to quit.
I think there's one major thing we have in common, Triton, and that is we cannot stand hypocrites.
We cannot. Exactly.
Yeah.
We can't stand hypocrites. I feel like it's so hypocritical for Trump and MAGA to say, "Oh, we're for free speech," but then they want to silence people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and all these other Republicans that just don't agree with them on the Epstein thing and foreign policy. And it's like, why are you going to silence them? And that's why we did the march and walked all the way to D.C., because we're tired we're tired of our voices being silenced. We're tired of politicians being silenced, and a lot of those same politicians not even do anything about it. I feel like out of all the politicians right now, Thomas Massey's probably the most effective one doing anything, while the rest I feel like are like they claim they want to do stuff, but they are so cornered and scared every time Trump or MAGA or the billionaires behind the scenes tell them knock it off. They get scared and give in.
Now,
Politicians that don't give in.
I know you guys have been growing a lot, especially since the March for America. Are you moving full time into political talk, or are you still doing internet drama at all, or any of that?
I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm doing internet drama, but I'm still going to be talking about like gaming drama, gaming news, and stuff like that time to time.
So gaming news and politics, but
we're mainly focusing on political stuff, mainly to further the March for America agenda, and to also try to make a change, because I feel like 2026 and 2028, these years are going to be one of the most important years for Gen Z, and I feel like the only time to act is to act now and not let the establishment basically rule over Gen Z as well. If we can get politicians that are against establishment, that are for America first and for Americans into office, then I feel like we could save Gen Z, and Gen Z is not going to be as cursed as the boomers want us to be. You know what I mean?
right. I'm a millennial myself.
To save the future of our country and the future of free speech, we need to get people in that have different perspectives. Because right now, everyone in Trump's administration right now that are in office, they're all saying, "Oh, we love Israel." It's like, when are you going to have someone that feels different about Israel and Epstein and all that? When are we going to have someone that feels different, that actually calls out the establishment, that's not an establishment puppet, that's not paid off by AIPAC and all these other foreign entities that pay off our politicians? I feel like America should not have compromised politicians.
Yeah, I've always been more in favor of sort of like more of the pre-World War One isolationism, and that really fell out of favor with politicians. It's still popular among average Americans. I mean, average Americans don't want to be involved in war, but politicians, both parties, since World War One, basically want to get involved in foreign affairs, and we should, honest to God, we need to be focusing on our citizens and our country. And when I heard your movement going on, I was like, wow, you really get it. Like, even though you're a young person and it's, the deck stacked against you because of how society is and how you grew up in society, you get it, and you and your people get it. And so I really like the movement that you guys were doing, and I appreciate you taking some time out to answer some questions and talk about it.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing. It's like, and that's the thing, I know people say, like, oh, you don't have enough clout. It's like, eventually, like, clout doesn't happen over 24 hours. It's not even for clout either. It's to get our message out and to wake people up and show people, hey, we are serious. We're not like these other influencers that get bribes and get paid. We actually go out and we actually, mean what we say, and we will actually do something about it. Because I feel like there's a lot of movements and a lot of influencers that talk all this game. Some of them talk a good game, but none of them really enact it or mean it. But our movement is showing that we actually do mean what we're saying, and we're trying to get change in our government.
Yeah, and I do think you are able to get some results, and it seems like you have a plan for what you're going to do the rest of the year. But I just want to go ahead and open the floor to you if there's anything else you want to add or say, and let everybody know where they can find you again. And again, thanks for taking the time out.
Yeah, of course. So my last final statements to anyone that's listening is have your own voice, and also make sure that you help the people in need and the politicians and all. We got to hold our politicians accountable. If we elect politicians and they say they're for the people, then they need to be for the people. They need to help homeless Americans that are struggling. They need to end all foreign affairs, all foreign wars. They need to prosecute the ones that are actually not for us Americans and are taking bribes from these foreign entities, and we need to just get foreign influence and foreign influence out and take our country back. And if y'all want to find the March for America movement, we have March for America on Facebook, the Ravencast YouTube channel on YouTube, March for America Twitter community on Twitter. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you, RJ, for taking the time to interview me and asking me these great questions and giving me a voice to express the march and my thoughts on the whole march. I appreciate you taking the time to interview me.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thanks for showing up. And if you guys want to leave any thoughts in the comments below, go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Please go check out the Ravencast. They're doing great things over there. And it's good to see young Americans getting out there and getting stuff done for our country. Thanks, Triton. We'll see you later.